Today, I'd like to talk about the movement, the intellectual movement of 18th century in Europe, the Enlightenment. Immanuel Kant defined the Enlightenment as the process of human getting out of its mental intellectual immaturity. Basically, what they said was to get out from what they think important in the Dark Ages to build a whole new world. During the 18th century, certain thinkers and writers such as Voltaire, Rousseau, Locke, and Diderot, primarily London and Paris, believed that they were more enlightened than their compatriots and set out to enlighten them. Enlightenment thinkers. The thinkers believed that human reason could be used to combat ignorance, superstition, and tyranny and to build a better world. Their principal targets were religion, the Catholic Church in France, and the domination of society via hereditary aristocracy. Background in antiquity. The application of Aristotelian logic by Thomas Aquinas in the 13th century set the stage for the Enlightenment. What this basically saying was the logic was initially used to defend the church and their ideas. But now, in the age of the Enlightenment, it also ironically it is used now to attack churches. The humanists such as Erasmus or John Locke celebrated the human race and its capacities. They argued they were worshipping God more appropriately than the priests and monks who harped on original sin and asked people to humble themselves. Focused on man's creativity, some of them claimed that humans were like God, created not only in his image but with a share of creative power. This idea was originated in Renaissance Italy and continued in the Age of Enlightenment. Challenges church authority. In the 16th century, various humanists had begun to ask dangerous questions, such as François Rabelais. The scientific revolution also took place in Europe during the Age of Enlightenment. 1632, Galileo Galilei used logic, observation, to argue for Copernicus' idea that the Earth rotates on its axis around the Sun, the heliocentric idea. Church opposition. The church objected that the Bible clearly stated the sun moved through the sky and denounced Galileo's teachings, forcing him to recant what he had written and preventing him from teaching further. He admitted at the front of church people, and while he was getting out, he said, "The earth still rotates." The advance of science. However, the church could not prevent the advance of science, although most of those advances would take place in Protestant Northern Europe, out of the reach of the Pope and his Inquisition. Anti-dogmatism. Michel de Montaigne asks a single question over and over again in his essays: "What do I know?" He realized he asserted that he has nothing to know except he don't know everything. Influenced by non-Christian cultures in places as far as Brazil, Montaigne argued that morals may be relative. Where Europeans insisted that Brazilian cannibals, who merely consumed dead human flesh instead of wasting it, are morally inferior to Europeans who persecute and oppress those of whom they disapprove. Skepticism also took place during the Age of Enlightenment. René Descartes, in the 17th century, attempted to use reason to shore up his faith. He tried to begin with a blank slate, with a bare minimum of knowledge, the knowledge of his own existence. I think, therefore I am. Cogito ergo sum. The 17th century was torn by witch hunts, wars of religion, and imperial conquest. Religious intolerance. Protestants and Catholics denounced each other as followers of Satan, and people could be imprisoned for not attending the wrong church. Well, to Catholic, Protestants, Catholic, or for not attending any. So choose one of them or die, basically. All publications, whether pamphlets or scholarly volumes, were subject to prior censorship by both church and state. As the New World found, slavery was widely practiced, especially in the colonial plantations of the Western Hemisphere, and its cruelties frequently defended by leading religious figures. This despotism of monarchs exercising far greater powers than any medieval king was supported by the doctrine of the divine right of kings, and scripture quoted to show that the revolution was detested by God. During the late Middle Ages, peasants had begun to move from rural estates to the town in search of increased freedom and prosperity. As trade and communication improved during the Renaissance, the ordinary town dweller began to realize that things need not always go on as they had for centuries. People could write new charters, form new governments, pass new laws, begin new businesses. Novel era dominated whole Europe. The new class of merchants brought back wealth from the Asia and the America, partially displacing the old aristocracy whose power has been rooted in the ownership of land. These merchants had their own ideas about the sort of world they wanted to inhabit, and they became major agents of change in the arts, in the government, and in the society economy too. The chief obstacles to the reshaping Europe were absolutist kings and dogmatic churches. The general trend was clear. Individualism, freedom, and change replaced community, authority, and tradition as core European values. Europeans were changing, but Europe's institutions were not keeping pace with the change. The church insisted that it was the only source of truth, and that all who lived outside its bounds were damned to go hell. The middle classes, the bourgeois, which contributed American Revolution and French Revolution, were painfully aware that they were paying taxes to support valueless, expensive aristocracy which contributed nothing of value of society. As a result, they revolted. They were defined and idealized in among the impoverished masses who realized that they were paying higher and higher taxes to support the lifestyle of the idle rich of Versailles. Interestingly, it was among these very idle aristocrats that the French Enlightenment philosophers were to find some of their earliest and most enthusiastic followers. Voltaire moved easily in aristocratic circles, dining at their tables, taking a title of mistress, corresponding with monarchs. He opposed Iranian dogma and the notion for reinventing democracy. Voltaire's chief adversary was Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Rousseau opposed the theory which was Voltaire's lifeblood, shunned the aristocracy which Voltaire courted, and argued for something dangerous like democratic revolution. Whereas Voltaire argued that equality was impossible, Rousseau argued that inequality was unnatural. Whereas Voltaire charmed this with his wit, Rousseau always claimed to be right. Whereas Voltaire insisted on the supremacy of intellect, Rousseau emphasized emotions which were connected to Romanticism. And whereas Voltaire repeated the same handful of core Enlightenment ideas, Rousseau sparked new ideas with education, the family, the government, the arts of whatever has attracted his attention, and this changed the society. For all their personal differences, Rousseau and Voltaire shared more values than they liked to acknowledge. They viewed absolute monarchy as dangerous and evil and rejected Orthodox Christianity. Rousseau was almost much as skeptic as Voltaire. The minimalist faith was shared was called theism, and was eventually to transform European religion and had powerful influences on other aspects of society as well. Great Britain developed its own idea, fostered by thinkers like John Locke. He influenced the American Revolution a lot. David Hume influenced Immanuel Kant by questioning the correlation. The English and French Enlightenment exchange influenced through many channels. Because England got in this revolution up the way early, it was able to proceed more smoothly down the road of democracy. But English liberty was dynamite when transported to France, where resistance by church and state were fierce. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, many of the intellectual leaders of the American colonies were drawn to the Enlightenment. Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, and Thomas Paine were powerfully influenced by Enlightenment thought. The language of natural law, or of inherent freedoms, or self-determination, which seeps as deeply into the American grain, was the language of the Enlightenment. Their revolution was to be far less corrosive due to their geographical location. Voltaire and his allies in France struggled to assert the values of freedom and tolerance in the culture, but the twin fortresses of monarchy and church opposed almost everything stood for. Voltaire was joined by a group of rebellious thinkers, known as the Philosophers, Charles de Montesquieu, Birvelli, Jacques d'Alembert, and many less lights. And because Denis Diderot would commission many of them to write for his influential encyclopedia, they are also known as the encyclopedists. Today, the Enlightenment often is a historical anomaly. Religious thinkers repeatedly proclaimed the Enlightenment dead. Marxists denounced it for promoting the ideals and power of the bourgeois at the expense of working class. Post-colonial critics reject its idealization of specifically European notions as universal truth. In many ways, the Enlightenment has never been alive. It informed the foundation of the modern countries, human rights, religious tolerance, self-government. Okay, this was the Age of Enlightenment. Thank you for listening, my lecture.